When President Rodrigo Duterte issued Executive Order No. 70, the Philippines saw a gradual decline of acts of terror and violence within the archipelago and its maritime borders.
Alam mo, ayaw kong makipag-away with anybody. But there will be a time, ayaw ko lang sabihin kung ano, that I will have to confront Abu Sayyaf. It is not yet forthcoming, alam ko, pero yung kidnapping nila must stop. It has given us a very bad image. There will be a reckoning of what really happened. Can always give you something. I will pour money muna sa social aspect. And if I can accommodate all of you, all the Moro people, walang problema sa akin. But avoid being a member of that Abu Sayyaf because there will be, I said, a reckoning one of these days.
With the national government's whole-of-nation approach, government agencies, local government units, and the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, are working together to deliver services to deprived communities and areas in the southern Philippines that have long been affected by protracted armed conflict. Gradually, many members of the New People's Army, Communist Party of the Philippines, or CPP-NPA, and some members of the Abu Sayyaf Group, or ASG, surrendered and moved on with renewed lives with government assistance, and their children benefiting with proper education and sustainable economic and livelihood opportunities.
Mindanao, a group of islands located in the southern portion of the Philippines, is known for its melting pot of rich cultural heritage and traditions. However, insurgencies took place as an effect of geopolitical tensions, social inequalities, and open hostilities between the militant groups and the government. Throughout the years, various Bangsamoro rebel groups emerged due to the disruption and exploitation of their culture and resources. The Moro people became more vulnerable, living in poverty, which led them as one of the marginalized sectors today.
The martial law era spawned to violent incidents recorded by Philippine contemporary history from the Jabida Massacre, the Pata Massacre, the Jolo Siege in 1974, and the Jolo Massacre, giving birth to the national liberation movements such as the Moro National Liberation Front, Moro Islamic Liberation Front, Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters, and the Abu Sayyaf Group.
The Abu Sayyaf Group, also known as ASG, is one of the many Islamic separatist groups that is linked to armed insurgency groups in Mindanao. The National Counter-Terrorism Center regards the ASG as the most violent among the conflict militant factions in the country.
The ASG was established by Abdurrazzaq Abubakar Janjalani in 1991 through the help of the Islamic Tabligh, a religious fundamentalist organization. Janjalani studied in the Middle East and formed his radical views following his trips to Saudi Arabia, Libya, and other Islamic countries. With the death of Janjalani in 1998, following an encounter with government troops, the ASG fragmented into two factions. One group was succeeded by his brother Gaddafi Janjalani, while another coalition was led by a commander named Galib Andang. The division and the weakening insurgency led the conflict group to initiate kidnappings for ransom to ensure the militant movement's financial survival. Andang was arrested in 2003, and another sub-leader, Idang Susukan, in 2021, which minimized the fragmentation of the rebel forces.
The Abu Sayyaf Group considerably has an active presence in the region. The first attacks were recorded on April 4, 1991, when they launched a bombing incident in Zamboanga that claimed the lives of 2 foreigners. They abducted foreigners including the American couple Martin and Gracia Burnham, the American-Peruvian Guillermo Sabero, Canadian Robert Hall and John Ridsdale, Germans, Norwegians, and fellow Filipinos among a few. Thus, the Center for International Security and Cooperation, also known as CISAC, cites that Abu Sayyaf Group with a reputation as the most violent Islamic separatist in the Philippines.
In 2000, the ASG made international headlines with its initial strike in Malaysia by kidnapping 21 people in a resort. Meanwhile, its deadliest attacks occurred on the MV Super Ferry 14 bombing incident in 2004 that killed 116 people. With counter-terrorism initiatives killing Gaddafi Janjalani in 2006, the decentralization cycle continues upon key leadership losses. They eventually resort to acts of kidnapping and threaten to behead their victims once the bargaining end of the ransom was not met.
This led the ASG to center instead on monetary ambitions rather than political vendetta. The proceeds gained from ransoms were then used to finance arms and other materials needed for battle. Since the ASG extorts money through abduction, there are political and economic analysts that tend to associate the group to a mafia rather than a fundamentalist assembly.
Parang yung treatment nila, parang aso kami, parang bata. Pag nagkamali, binubugbog. Ako, sinasampal nila ako. 2 beses ako nasampal, yung mga kasama ko binubugbog.
Beginning July 23, 2014, the ASG acquainted themselves with the Islamic State, also known as IS, based in the Middle East. Lieutenant General Rustico Guerrero of the Philippine Army believed that the pledging of allegiance was motivated for personal reasons instead of concerning the intention of the IS. Violence was recorded in that same month of the island of Holosulu that witnessed the slaying of at least 21 Muslims after the holy month of Ramadan. The ASG claimed responsibility for the attacks, which was allegedly in protest of the peace initiatives taking place.
On May 23, 2017, the ASG also played an integral involvement in the sequence of violent attacks during the Marawi siege. With renewed ambitions of instituting an Islamic State in Mindanao, the ASG, under the influence of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or also known as ISIS, targeted the Muslim-populated city of Marawi. The fighting between the government forces and the separatist groups lasted for 5 months, destroying most of Marawi city, that terminated the lives of more than 1,000 people and displaced approximately 200,000 people. On October 17, 2017, the Philippine military liberated Marawi city after having been claimed by armed rebels like the Abu Sayyaf Group and the Maute Group in months of battle.
With the law enacted by former President Rodrigo Duterte on July 26, 2018, a Muslim development concentrated region was formed in Mindanao. The inception of the Bangsamoro region directed the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or MILF, to decommission their militant fighters.
The purpose is to unify the Bangsamoro leaders so that we can come out with a common approach.
Despite these harmonious efforts, other rebel groups were unable to follow suit in deactivating their weapons, including the Abu Sayyaf Group. SISAC cites, the ASG is the smallest and most radical of the Philippines Islamic separatist groups. However, the Philippine government chooses to undermine and neglect negotiations with the conflicting group. This pushed the ASG further towards resistance. Peace talks were taken into consideration by the two parties, but little to no developments were observed.
I'm so sad about this development, but there will always be a time for reckoning. There is no more peace talks to talk about.
In collaboration with the national government's efforts on anti-guerrilla operations, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, calls on service for the country as a response to the increasing number of insurgencies in Mindanao alone. The troopers from the Philippine Army, Philippine Navy, and Philippine Air Force work together with the President, who is serving as the Commander-in-Chief of the military forces. On July 31, 2018, the AFP figured in a bomb explosion in Lamitan City, Basilan that killed at least 10 people, involving a Philippine Army Special Forces sergeant and 4 local military soldiers from the Philippine Army. Other casualties include a driver and several civilians. The AFP blames the ASG for the attacks.
In Zamboanga City, the Western Mindanao Command is the unified command with area of operations in Zamboanga Peninsula, Northern Mindanao, and part of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. West Mincom is responsible for fighting against insurgency and external aggression by solidifying the defense patterns of our military troops. The command center heavily advocates for a culture of peace in Mindanao as its headquarters are located at Camp General Navarro, Barangay Upper Carreon.
Our men are capable of conducting underwater operations like scuba diving and mixed cast diving also. In the air, we are capable of operating using basic parachutist skills or free fall. So basically that's Sea Air Land Unit.
Since October 4, 2022, the acting West Mincom Commander Marine Brigadier General Arturo Rojas stated in this exclusive interview that there has been an increase in the commissioned rebels and surrenderers among the Abu Sayyaf Group in the past 2 years based on geographical data. He quotes that the conflict groups like the ASG witnessed the political stability and consistency in the governance project implementation, which led to the downward trends in their population count.
Konti na lang yan sila. Andalus na yung mga... Kasi una-una yung mga LGUs, di ba, mga local chief executives, medyo, siyempre, conscious na rin sila sa mag-provide ng basic services, di ba?
As far as the Western Mindanao Command's jurisdiction is concerned, the acting commander agreed that Zamboanga Peninsula and Tawi-Tawi have now become insurgency-free. However, lawlessness continues to persist in Basilan due to the rebellious activities of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front or MILF.
For instance, Tawi-Tawi, going into 3rd year na, walang incident ko. So wala mga kidnapping, hijacking, sa mga border.
Rojas said that anti-guerrilla operations against the ASGs should not only involve military forces of the AFP working on ground in ensuring long-term peace-building initiatives. Instead, it should also be the collective responsibility of everyone to come up with solutions that will discourage the youth from affiliating themselves into joining these conflict groups. The civil-military operation should tap the local government units or LGUs for material resources and development projects to actualize through the enrichment of its security and leadership programs.
Kumbaga, you engage the locals and the mayors, mga LGUs. So, engage them na ito yung military and civilian strategy dapat. Talagang very well integrated dapat, hand in hand na ma-implement. So yung policy ng government to have these programs, kaya nakikita natin ako with this new administration, nakita naman natin yung statements na mas popondohan pa natin itong naging success na mga programs.
Executive Order Number 70, Series of 2018, signed by former President Rodrigo R. Duterte, is a proclamation institutionalizing the whole-of-nation approach in attaining inclusive and sustainable peace, creating a national task force to end local communist armed conflict, and directing the adoption of a national peace framework.
The executive order suggests that the whole-of-nation approach addresses the root causes of insurgencies, internal disturbances, and tensions, and other armed conflicts and threats by prioritizing and harmonizing the delivery of basic services and social development packages by the government. facilitating societal inclusivity, and ensuring active participation of all sectors of the society in the pursuit of the country's peace agenda.
Further, the Duterte administration believed that there is a need to create a national task force that would provide an efficient mechanism and structure for the implementation of the whole of nation approach to aid in the realization of the collective aspiration of the Filipino people to attain inclusive and sustainable peace.
As we acknowledge and recognize the happenings of the past, we learn to become more sensitive towards other culture. Therefore, we also get to understand and empathize with their conflicting struggles in their communities and in society.
Violence is never the answer to address conflicts. Moreover, these Moro insurgencies in Mindanao are an effect of decades-long battle on geopolitics, region, culture, and society.
Together, let us champion for peace in our communities, in our region, and in our country as one Mindanao and as one Philippines. This has been Rivera,
Dayang, Jaafar,
Maravilla,
your peace journalist.